Pineapple jam is one of those fun tropical jams. A lot of times I like to add pineapple to like my strawberries or to my cherries, and those are fun, but sometimes it's nice to just go all in and be a completely pineapple jam. This is really fun to eat on toast or on ice cream or any number of other things. The first thing I did was cut off the top and bottom of my pineapple, and then I cut off along the edges. Then I cut it into quarters so that I could get to that center core, and I cut the core off of each of the quarters. That core is just a little bit too hard, so it wouldn't work well in a jam. I then cut the quarters into slices so that they would more easily go through the blender. The next step is to place them in the blender, and I'll puree them until they're just a little bit on the soft side. I want it to be about like a crushed pineapple. In fact, you could use canned crushed pineapple if you preferred. And then I check my quantity, and it's perfectly 4.5 cups, so that's good. Then I'll place my 4.5 cups of pureed pineapple into my pan. I like to use a silicone spatula to make sure that I've gotten it all. I'll then add 6 tablespoons of pectin and 1/2 teaspoon of butter. The butter just keeps the foam down as it's cooking. I've also pre-measured 6 cups worth of sugar, which I'll set to the side of the stove. Then I'll place this on the stove and I'll bring it to a boil. Now that it's started to boil, I'll add my 6 cups of sugar. And I want to add it all at once. This is why it needs to be pre-measured. Otherwise, it could start to burn as you're measuring it out. And then mix it in. It has such a pretty, happy yellow color. And I'll bring it back to a boil. Now that it's come to a nice boil, I'll set my timer for 1 minute. I'll continue to stir the whole time just to make sure that it doesn't scorch. And I can tell that it's a rolling boil because even though I'm stirring, it's continuing to boil. Now I'll fill my 1/2 pint jars until they're at 1/4 of an inch of headspace, which is the space from the top of the food to the top of the jar. The reason for the different amounts of headspace is that different foods will expand different amounts, so it can affect the vacuum seal of the lid. At a certain point, I always switch over to a spatula because I just feel like there's so much that gets stuck. Next, I'll use a clean, damp cloth to wipe off the rim of my jars, and I just do this because if there's any jam that got on the edge, it could interfere with the seal. And then I put on my lids and rings until they're fingertip tight. I'll then process these in the boiling water bath for 10 minutes if I'm at sea level. I'm at 1,200 feet, so I'll do it for 15, but I won't start the timer until after it starts a rapid boil. Now that the timer's gone off, I'll remove the lid, turn off the heat, and let it cool for 5 minutes. I'll then remove the jars from the canner and place them on a heat-resistant surface about 1 to 2 inches apart. I'll let them rest there for 24 hours until they get a good seal. Then I'll remove the ring and wash them with hot soapy water and store them in a cool, dry, dark location for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. Now, if they didn't get a good seal, I can tell because the center will not be depressed down. It doesn't happen very often, but if it does, you just put it in your refrigerator and use it right away. Pineapple jam. It's just such a nice, mellow, tropical flavor. I made some guava jam today too, and that one's fun, but that flavor like jumps out at you, whereas this one's just mellow. It's lovely. I could see definitely eating this, well, you know, on toast, but also on ice cream, waffles, pancakes. Oh, it's just good.